The canon contained in the report, the 15 most foundational, essential, and influential white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and racialist literature titles, forms one of the most cohesive and enduring ideological collections in modern political thought. Spanning roughly a century, with a core concentration from the 1920s through the 1980s, these 15 titles stand out for their persistent circulation, frequent citation in manifestos and propaganda, and repeated reprinting across print and digital formats. They appear reliably in private libraries, online archives, study group recommendations, and as reference points in both historical and contemporary extremist materials. The selection encompasses varied genres: autobiographical manifestos, dystopian fiction, philosophical treatises, conspiracy expositions, esoteric mysticism, and tactical essays, creating a multifaceted body of work that appeals to different intellectual appetites and practical needs within the milieu. This diversity strengthens the canon's accessibility and longevity. Fiction like The Turner Diaries, 1978, and Hunter, 1989, both by William Luther Pierce, under the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald, delivers visceral, narrative-driven visions of racial conflict and revolutionary triumph, making abstract ideas emotionally immediate. The Camp of the Saints, 1973, by Jean Raspail, extends this through an apocalyptic migration scenario that dramatizes cultural and demographic collapse. In contrast, doctrinal works such as Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf, 1925 to 1927, George Lincoln Rockwell's White Power, 1967, and Francis Parker Yockey's Imperium, 1948, supplies systematic blueprints for racial governance, leadership principles, and geopolitical strategy. Philosophical and mystical texts, including Alfred Rosenberg's The Myth of the 20th Century, 1930, Savitri Devi's The Lightning and the Sun, 1958, and William Gailey Simpson's Which Way, Western Man? 1978, add metaphysical depth, framing racial struggle within eternal cycles of decay and rebirth or Nietzschean hierarchies of power. Anti-Semitic conspiracy literature occupies a pivotal role, with The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, early 1900s Russian original, widespread English editions from the 1920s, and Henry Ford's The International Jew, 1920 to 1922 compilation, providing explanatory frameworks that attribute societal ills to coordinated Jewish influence in finance, media, and politics. These texts recur as foundational explanations for decline across the broader canon. More esoteric or power-centric philosophy appears in Ragnar Redbeard's Might is Right, 1890, revised 1910, which champions raw strength and social Darwinist dominance, rejecting egalitarian or Christian moral systems outright. Historical and revisionist arguments round out the list. Ernest Severe Cox's White America, 1926, advocates eugenics, segregation, and repatriation based on early racial science, while Arthur Butz's The Hoax of the 20th Century, 1976, challenges mainstream Holocaust narratives through technical and demographic scrutiny. James Mason's Siege, Essays from the 1980s, compiled 1992, shifts toward accelerationist tactics, promoting leaderless resistance and chaotic violence to hasten systemic collapse rather than conventional organizing. Thematic unity binds these works despite their formal differences. Racial hierarchy consistently positions whites, or Aryans Nordics, as civilization's creators and sustainers, with other groups, especially Jews, cast as existential threats or parasites. Anti-Semitism serves as the primary diagnostic lens for cultural decay, economic manipulation, and political subversion. Violence emerges as not merely permissible but essential for renewal, whether through mass revolutionary campaigns, the Turner Diaries, individual assassinations, Hunter, or unpredictable terrorism, Siege. Anti-democratic sentiment runs deep, portraying liberal pluralism, equality, and parliamentary systems as weakening mechanisms that dilute racial interests and empower mediocrity. Mystical and cyclical historical interpretations provide transcendent justification. Rosenberg and Devi reject Christian universalism in favor of pagan or Hindu-inspired frameworks that align racial destiny with cosmic patterns of destruction and regeneration. Yockey's organic cultural theory and Simpson's aristocratic elitism echo this emphasis on natural hierarchies over egalitarian illusions. Preservation strategies, eugenics, territorial expansion, segregation, repatriation, reappear as recurring prescriptions, adapting to different national contexts, American in Rockwell and Cox, Pan-European in Yockey and Rosenberg, global in Pierce's fiction. The Canon's compactness, only 15 core entries, facilitates intensive study while offering sufficient breadth for sustained engagement. Serialization played a key role in early dissemination. The International Jew began as newspaper articles. The Turner Diaries appeared in installments, allowing gradual buildup among dispersed readers. Publication timing often aligns with periods of perceived crisis, post-World War I instability for Mein Kampf and the International Jew, civil rights era tensions for Rockwell, 1970s immigration debates for Raspail, 1980s radicalization for Mason, demonstrating responsiveness to contemporary threats. Author trajectories reveal patterns within the movement. Intellectual producers like Simpson lived to 98, Cox, 86, Raspail, 94, and Butts, still active in his 90s, enjoyed long lives focused on writing and theory. High-visibility activists Hitler, suicide at 56, Rockwell, assassinated at 49, Rosenberg, executed at 53, Yockey, suicide in custody at 42, faced violent or abrupt ends, underscoring the personal risks of direct confrontation versus solitary ideological labor. Grouping the titles thematically highlights balance. Political manifestos and governance, Mein Kampf, white power, imperium, structured programs for racial states. Dystopian revolutionary fiction, The Turner Diaries, Hunter, The Camp of the Saints, narrative inspiration for conflict. Anti-Semitic conspiracy, The Protocols, The International Jew, explanatory mechanisms. Philosophical esoteric mysticism, The Myth of the 20th Century, Which Way Western Man, The Lightning and the Sun, Might is Right, spiritual and power-based rationales. Historical scientific racialism, White America, The Hoax of the 20th Century, Siege, data-driven and tactical support. Cross-references reinforce cohesion. Mein Kampf's racial and propaganda ideas influence later American applications in Rockwell and Pierce. Siege builds on the Turner Diaries, revolutionary model by shifting to decentralized terror. Esoteric elements in Devi and Rosenberg echo through Simpson and Yockey. Ultimately, this collection's strength lies in its adaptability and interconnectedness. It combines intellectual rigor, emotional resonance, tactical guidance, and metaphysical purpose into a self-reinforcing worldview. Through reprintings, digital preservation, and ongoing citation, these texts maintain relevance across generations, offering adherents a comprehensive resource for understanding decline, identifying enemies, justifying action, and envisioning renewal. Their compact yet deep nature ensures they remain central to ideological transmission in white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and racialist circles. Conclusion: the 15 most foundational white racialist books and their enduring legacy. The 15 titles that comprise this canon of white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and racialist literature form a remarkably compact, internally consistent, and historically durable ideological framework. Spanning manifestos, novels, conspiracy expositions, philosophical treatises, esoteric mysticism, and tactical writings, they collectively deliver a unified worldview centered on racial hierarchy, anti-Semitism as the primary explanation for societal decline, violence as an indispensable instrument of renewal, rejection of democratic egalitarianism, and preservation strategies rooted in eugenics, segregation, and territorial ambition. Mystical and cyclical interpretations of history further endow the struggle with transcendent purpose, linking contemporary crises to eternal patterns of decay and rebirth. The canon's strength derives from its deliberate balance, intellectual depth from doctrinal works, emotional immediacy from dystopian fiction, explanatory power from conspiracy analyses, metaphysical justification from esoteric philosophy, and practical guidance from revisionist and accelerationist texts. Its limited size facilitates comprehensive study, while diverse formats and publication methods, serialization, small presses, digital archiving, have ensured wide dissemination and generational transmission. Responsive to moments of perceived racial or cultural peril, These works have remained central reference points through reprintings, citations in manifestos, and ongoing discussion in movement circles. Despite the varied personal fates of their authors, from long lives devoted to solitary intellectual production to abrupt, violent ends met by high-profile activists, the ideas they articulated have proven remarkably resilient. Together, these texts continue to provide adherents with a complete ideological toolkit: diagnosis of decline, identification of enemies, moral and metaphysical legitimization of action, and vivid visions of a racially renewed future. Their interconnectedness and adaptability secure their place as the foundational literature of modern racialist thought.